Let's talk about labor inductions. This concept of the labor epidural leading to back discomfort, back pain in the long run is one that comes up a lot. Your ability to eat on labor and delivery has been a source of debate for quite some time. There are several positions in which you can choose to push in. Welcome to this week's episode of the Black Birth Stories podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Tiffany Wittes. I'm a wife, a mama, and a board-certified OBGYN on a mission to help eliminate women's health disparities and improve Black maternal health outcomes. I help you take back control of your birth story without the fear of becoming a victim of the Black maternal health crisis. Each week, we amplify the voices of Black women in our unique birthing experiences, creating an environment for learning, for healing, and for empowerment. Be sure and follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube so that you don't miss an episode.
Induction day!
It's official. I just show them that so they know it's official. Y'all see where we at?
Yeah.
Today's the day, so we gonna see how this goes.
Let's talk about labor inductions. There are two basic types of inductions. One is an elective induction and the other is a medical induction. An elective induction can be done after 39 weeks and is done without a maternal or fetal indication for induction. Medical inductions, on the other hand, would be done because of a maternal or fetal indication for that induction. There are lots of different types of medical inductions. There are medical inductions for maternal indications and medical inductions for fetal indications. Some examples of inductions for maternal indications include things like high blood pressure, hypertensive disorders of pregnancy, poorly controlled blood sugars at term. When it comes to fetal reasons for induction, this might include things like evidence of fetal distress, for example. A landmark study called the ARRIVE trial, which was published in 2018, really gave us great information about how to approach and understand labor inductions and the implications of inductions. This was a huge study that looked at elective inductions in first-time moms and actually showed us that when you look at these moms who were induced electively at 39 weeks and compared them to those moms who were undergoing expectant management, as in just spontaneous onset of labor, we actually saw a decrease in the rates of cesarean deliveries in those moms undergoing elective inductions. Now, this applies to low-risk, nulliparous moms, as in moms who had not yet had any babies. We also did not see any significant increase in morbidity for both mom or baby, and now understand that it's reasonable to consider an elective induction at 39 weeks for an elective indication, as well as for maternal or fetal indications as well.
We got the gown on right now. She ready to go.
How do I let go?
Good. But yeah, we just finna wait. Y'all already know how this go. We just wait for them to come in here and then they tell us how many centimeters.
She's checking my centimeters.
Or they just, I don't know what they do. They're just gonna tell us what. Yeah, they don't really do nothing right now.
I just got my IV. Really feels cold. Like I just feel the cold rushing up my arm.
I need an IV.
You probably do.
So we still just waiting. It's the boring part.
The doctor just came in and checked me. I am about 3 centimeters. That's crazy because I just seen her like last week and I was 1.5. So
this mom is starting out at a good place at 3 centimeters. There are a lot of things that we look at when it comes to whether or not someone is favorable to undergo a labor induction. There's a score that we calculate called the Bishop score, which looks at several different characteristics of someone's exam in order to inform us about how likely we are to be successful at a vaginal delivery for someone who is undergoing a labor induction. There are a couple of characteristics that we look at. The first is that mama already starting to dilate? What is the position of that cervix? Is it posterior behind the baby's head, or is it in a more mid or anterior position? What is the consistency of the cervix? Is it super firm, like the end of your nose, or is it floppy and like a wet pancake, and is it starting to efface? And the higher the score is, as in the more characteristics of favorability someone has, the more likelihood that they're going to be successful at a vaginal delivery. It is not unusual for mamas who are not first-time mamas to walk around at 2, 3, maybe even 4 centimeters and not be in labor, because you're not in labor until you have those regular, consistent, strong labor contractions that are actively changing your cervix. So it's those Braxton Hicks contractions that she's likely been experiencing this whole way through that have softened and prepared her cervix for labor. She mentioned Cervical. There are a couple of different ways to approach inductions. One of the go-tos is to start with a measured approach as in a slow and steady approach that helps to first prepare the cervix for labor before we go full in with strong labor contractions. There are medicines called prostaglandins, which are either given by mouth or can be placed vaginally that will help soften and prepare the cervix for labor. Think of them as doing kind of what Braxton Hicks contractions do. They'll get you revved up, contracting irregularly. Usually these contractions are very tolerable, but this slow and steady approach really helps prepare that cervix for labor and improve the likelihood that we're going to be successful, especially with first-time mamas. Other types of induction might include mechanical inductions. So, for example, stripping the membranes would be an example of mechanical induction. So, this is a really aggressive cervical exam, which is typically done after about 39 weeks, where a cervical check is done and the provider will reach up as high as they can and kind of ream out the cervix. And yes, it is as painful as it sounds, a very aggressive cervical exam. Definitely should not be done without a thorough discussion and without consent prior to it being done. But essentially, it revs up hormones and helps to separate, literally physically separate where the cervix and the membranes meet up in order to make space, create space in that layer, and increasing the hormones often kickstarts that mama into labor. There are other mechanical ways to induce labor, such as a Cook catheter, which is very similar to a Foley bowl, except the Foley doesn't go in the bladder this time. This time it's going in the cervix. And it simulates what the head would do if the head was low enough to push against the cervix, because you need that head, that skull pushing against the cervix along with those labor contractions, those labor forces to really dilate the cervix. And so those are mechanical ways to induce labor. I've also had moms use their breast pump. We know that oxytocin, which is the hormone that allows us to have milk let down, it's the thing that makes us contract. So I've had moms use their breast pump in order to induce labor. You guys have probably heard the saying that the way that you got the baby in there is the way that you get the baby out as well. So physical intimacy is something that can be used to rev up oxytocin and other hormones that can also lead to contractions that can help to induce the onset of labor as well.
Especially, I'm trying not to do epidural this time, guys. I don't think I mentioned that to you guys, but it's just a preference for me. There's nothing against epidural. I had it when I had Kai, but my back is like really, really bad, and I don't know if it could mess it up even more. I don't know. I'm a little nervous, so I'm really trying not to do epidural. So we're gonna see how this goes. I don't know. I'm nervous to not have epidural, but we're gonna try positive thinking and breathing and yeah.
This concept of the labor epidural leading to back discomfort, back pain in the long run is one that comes up a lot. And I definitely think that you need to have a thorough conversation with your anesthesiologist, with your OB provider to better understand this issue. Here's what we know. Just being pregnant has the ability to cause trauma and wear and tear on the body such that it can lead to chronic low back pain later in life. Having a delivery of any sort, whether it be a vaginal delivery or C-section, can also contribute to the changes that we see that can lead to chronic low back pain. We don't have good evidence to suggest that the actual epidural itself influences someone's potential for chronic low back pain or back concerns in the long run, but I do think that we do have great evidence to suggest that just the wear and tear and the trauma on the body and the physical changes that your musculoskeletal system undergoes with carrying a pregnancy, with delivering a baby, no matter the route of delivery, is more likely to cause chronic low back pain in the future than the actual physical placement of the labor epidural. Now, for mamas who want to have an unmedicated labor, you need to make sure that you're with a provider who supports your wishes. And you also need to make sure that you have a good game plan to tackle the discomfort that you are going to experience on that journey. I recommend to mamas who really are set on having a natural experience, as in no pain medication, to have a doula on board. You really need someone who's going to prepare you both mentally and physically for what you're going to endure on labor and delivery. For most mamas, this is not something that you just stumble into. You really have to be of the mindset and have the determination that this is the route you're going to take. You also need people around you who are going to fortify you, hold your arms up, uplift you, and remind you that this was your wish from the beginning, and then respect your decisions should you choose to change your mind, because It is not set in stone, and you can definitely change your mind at any point in time. You also want to make sure that you know what is available to you in terms of alternative pain options if you are choosing to or want to consider declining the epidural. So, for example, in the early stages of labor, and really throughout any stage of labor, we know that movement is golden in labor and can really help you manage some of the labor forces that you will experience. Being in water hydrotherapy is very calming and soothing and can help you deal with labor contractions. Being in different positions, being on a birthing ball, all of these things. Support from your partner can also help you manage some of the discomfort that you're experiencing in labor. Aromatherapy, massage, a focal point from home, all of these things can be conservative ways to deal with pain during labor. Labor and delivery units may also offer you nitrous oxide, which is a mixture of nitrous oxide and oxygen. It's kind of like laughing gas, which is also very safe and effective in helping deal with anxiety and pain on labor and delivery. So that could be an alternative, an acceptable alternative to the labor epidural. And then also there are IV pain medicines that can be given as well. Now, these are going to be very strong medicines. This is more like morphine, Demerol, Stadol, very strong medicines. So when these medicines are on board, they do inhibit your ability to get up and be more mobile because it's dangerous. You become a fall risk. However, we can still do a lot in terms of movement to keep your pelvis open, or things like the peanut ball between your legs. Different positions can still be done with those medicines on board in order to make sure that we're keeping that pelvis open to help baby navigate through the pelvis. It's important to have a conversation about IV pain medicine with your physician, your provider in your birth facility, because there can be some rules and restrictions in terms of the monitoring of baby after delivery. So, for example, in my facility, if those medicines are given within 4 hours of delivery, because they are sedative medicines and very strong medicines, the same way that they make you sleepy, drowsy, they can also make baby very sleepy and drowsy. And so with that being said, the NICU team has to be present at time of delivery to do baby's initial assessments to make sure that baby makes it through that transition, okay? Because of those medicines being on board. And if those medicines are given within 2 hours of delivery, my facility actually requires that the baby go and be watched in the nursery for that transitional period, because sometimes babies can be so sedated that they forget to breathe. Now, breathing is optional while, they're in the womb, but it's not optional out here. My facility requires that those babies be watched one-on-one so that we can make sure that they are staying safe and healthy. And then, of course, there is the labor epidural. And we've talked about the labor epidural before. I'll link in the cards above the video where we reference the ins and outs of the labor epidural for your reference. Go back and watch that later.
These are the worst mistakes Black women can make when choosing an OBGYN, assuming they'll automatically prioritize your safety, ignoring the signs when they dismiss your concerns, and not having a plan to advocate for yourself. Sis, I've been there, and that's why I'm so glad I found the Mocha Maternity Survival Guide, Choosing the Right OBGYN. This guide gave me everything I needed to avoid those mistakes, from conversation starters to tools for assessing their care. It's the ultimate roadmap to make sure you're seen, heard, and protected. Don't take chances with your health. Get your copy today and make the choice that could change everything.
That's it. Thank you.
Yeah, I wish I could have got her big order because I missed it.
The order for breakfast, all these breakfast items, and then they have this is like lunch and dinner stuff. But for lunch, dinner, I'm kind of looking at that teriyaki plate for later.
It's so big, yo. But she gotta eat though, because when this baby comes, not gonna be eating probably. She's just gonna be all locked in with the baby.
Good.
Your ability to eat on labor and delivery has been a source of debate for quite some time. Have a thorough conversation with your OB provider and your facility to find out what their policies are and what their preferences are. In my personal practice, for a low-risk mama, I have no issues with them eating a light diet. You need the energy that staying hydrated and eating gives you. We are about to ask you to run a marathon, and that is after, especially in an induction situation, that's after attempting to get you to go into labor for sometimes 1, 2, 2.5 days. Can you imagine getting to the end of that race and then me asking you to, all right, come on, let's go. I need you to push for me. Let's get it. Find the strength and energy. No. You need to stay fortified with food. Now, I tell mamas, don't eat anything that you don't mind seeing again, because we do see quite a bit of nausea, vomiting on labor and delivery, because sometimes when that stomach contracts, everything contracts, and whatever is in that stomach comes right on back up. So keep that in mind. But for a low-risk mama, No concern with either a clear liquid diet or a regular diet, especially as we're in the beginning starting the induction process. Now, if a concern comes up, if the situation changes, if we're starting to see signs that we might be at increased risk for an operative delivery or a C-section, then it's reasonable to pull back to a clear liquid diet, which is like jellos, juices, soup broths, water, ice chips, popsicles, that type of thing, because of the concerns with the anesthesia and the anesthesia that's necessary to safely perform an operative delivery won't allow you always to protect your airways. So if there's a lot of heavy food in your stomach, and it can reflux up into your lungs and be life-threatening for you. So definitely have a conversation with your OB provider and find out what the policies are. Include that in your birth plan so that you are prepared ahead of time.
The contractions are happening now, and it's only 9:19 right now. It's 9:19 and some contractions are already happening. So we're off to a good start. I'm about to eat my food because a girl is hungry. So I'm gonna hit y'all back later.
So you can see that this mama's on the monitor, and this brings up a good point. So we definitely need to have a conversation, and in your birth preferences, talk to your provider about what that would look like for you. In an induction situation, we tend to lean into continuous monitoring because we are actively doing something to the baby, and that something that we are doing can obviously be stressful. Labor is stressful. Inductions are stressful, not just for the mama, but for the baby too. And think of the monitor as like a temperature check. It's a vital sign, a blood pressure. It's our way to assess the fetus to make sure that all of the things that it's undergoing, it's handling okay. It allows us to identify a concern and potentially intervene on that concern to improve our outcomes sooner rather than later. Monitoring can be intermittent. It can be continuous. Intermittent monitoring is typically going to be in a low-risk mama, typically not one who's undergoing an induction, but more likely someone who comes in spontaneous labor. And there are different protocols for intermittent monitoring. One that I typically do is to look and see what the heart tones are about every 30 minutes, unless the situation changes. Continuous monitor would be where you have the heart rate monitor and then the tachometer, which is what measures the contractions on your abdomen at all times. Now, there are options for mobile monitors, and you should definitely have a conversation with your facility to see if that is an option for you. Mobile monitors will allow you to get up and move freely so that you don't feel like you're confined to the bed, strapped down to the bed, and you definitely have the freedom of movement. Even if mobile monitors are not available, a lot of facilities have monitors with super long cords, which will still allow you to get up and walk around, be on a birthing ball, be in a chair, using a squat bar, be in different positions. All of that is still feasible while being monitored.
So I'm officially on the wireless monitor, so I'm able to be up and move around. So I'm able to just be up and move around this time. And yeah, we're in the bathroom right now. I just went pee, but yeah, it's 10:25, just a little timestamp.
How much you think you gonna weigh?
I'm gonna guess like 6 pounds, 10 ounces.
What you think?
6 pounds and 4 ounces.
Yeah, Kai was 7 pounds 7 ounces, but he went over though. But he went over.
Also over the due date.
I think he's gonna be 6 pounds 8 ounces.
I got changed into my gown that I bought from Target that you guys seen in last vlog. I don't know if they're gonna say anything because low-key the IV like goes through the sleeve, you know what I mean? I should have probably got one that like buttons up that's literally for maternity, but it's okay. We're gonna see if they say anything.
You can definitely bring your own hospital gown if that's your preference. I would, though, keep in mind what she mentioned, which is access, right? So we want to be able to make sure that we have the appropriate access for your IV, because that can be a little tricky to manage if they don't have the buttons and the openings, the snaps up here. The ones specified for maternity gowns is what I would go with, or even the access to immediately do skin to skin and allow you easy access for nursing. So you can definitely bring your gown if that would make you feel more comfortable, if that would put your mind at ease, then I would definitely recommend doing that. And I would definitely include it as a part of your birth preference form.
Contractions, like I'm getting them here and there, but they're not painful or anything. They just kind of feel like a tight squeeze. They're like 12 minutes apart. They're gonna have to give me another dose of
Cytotec.
yeah, the Zytotec, right?
Cytotec.
Cytotec.
Yeah.
And to take as an example of those prostaglandin medicines that I was mentioning to you that we use at the onset of labor induction to soften and help to prepare the cervix for labor. It can be given orally or even vaginally in order to do what Braxton Hicks contractions do, which is to soften and prep that cervix for those strong labor contractions that Pitocin is going to later bring.
Probably like 30 seconds.
Looks tired.
Yeah, I'm pretty tired.
Yeah. Each side.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy.
I didn't think it was gonna be that long till I'm doing it.
Here walking, got this little thing right here. She trying to walk around so that something can happen, feel me?
You can get lower down and maybe engage a little bit.
Yep.
And just get some energy, get out the bed. Just pushing my little IV thingy.
We're gonna see what happens, y'all.
Yeah.
I love this mama's up and mobile. I love that she is exercising her ability to get up and move around. We definitely don't want you laying in the labor bed the entire induction. Movement, again, is golden in labor. And this particular activity that she's doing, it simulates curve walking, right? So she's doing motions and activities that help to open that pelvis up and make it easier for baby to move through the birth canal. So this is beautiful. You know, it's kind of a fine line, resting, conserving your energy versus being up and mobile to help facilitate the labor process. You have to do what your body feels good doing. You have to find your own balance. We definitely don't want you to be in the bed the whole time, but we want you to conserve your energy because, again, this is a marathon, and at the end, only you can run it, right? I can't push for you. Your midwife, your doctor can't push for you, so you have to be able to muster and conserve the energy in order to do that.
Okay, lots of pressure in there. Good. Yeah, she's like 4 and 70. Yeah, -2. Lower. -1. Yeah. Okay, good. You. Let's get the Pitocin rolling. You get epidural whenever you need.
Okay, thank you.
His head's super low.
How you feel?
Good.
4 centimeters?
Okay, that kind of hurt when she checked it though. I might have to get the epidural.
You can do this.
During a labor induction, there aren't any real prescribed like time periods when we check your cervix. I don't go into this with like a carbon copy, one size fits all. This is what everybody's experience is going to be. So I don't have rules like, you know, we check your cervix every 2 hours, or we check your cervix every 4 hours. I'm very low intervention. And so I do things when there is an indication to do it. So for example, if we start to see changes in the heart rate tracing, if you're on the monitor where we might want to investigate and it looks like we're potentially progressing, we might go ahead and check your cervix and see. If mama is feeling more pressure and she feels like she needs to be checked, she's starting to feel like she, you know, is having pressure on the rectum or can just feel that things are progressing, sometimes we'll take a look and check. Other times, if it's been quite some time and we're not making good forward progress, let's say things have been a little bit quiet and it's been 4 to 6 hours, we might go ahead and check. But in general, you want to avoid frequent cervical exams. They should be done only when necessary because the thing is there's bacteria all over the vagina. Now, this is particularly the case if your bag of water is broken and it's unavoidable. We can't clean all the bacteria away. And so each and every time you have a cervical check, we're potentially pushing that bacteria from the vagina into the bag of water and increasing your risk for infection. So that's just something to keep in mind.
Think about it. How many hands helped raise you? How many voices spoke life over you? How many arms held you close? Black family is deep, and at Melanin Maternity, we celebrate every single part of it. We're not just a shop for mamas. We're a love letter to the entire village. From keepsake birth announcements that honor your newest blessing, to new dad gifts, to presents for the grandma who still prays over you. We have gifts that tell your family's story. Looking for holiday gear that actually represents us? We got that too. Because whether you're the one having the baby or the one making sure the baby always has love, you deserve to be celebrated. Shop Melanin Maternity on Etsy today by visiting melaninmaternity.etsy.com because our families, our stories, and our legacies deserve the spotlight.
This is what we use to break the water. It's a little hook.
Okay.
So just grab the end of it, pop it, and zip. Okay? It's not too much more pressure than. Are you ready? Okay. A little pressure again. Yeah, you're like 5. Still about 70, but it's like the head has put so much pressure, I think it just needs the bag of water out of its way to do what it needs to do. There we go. Sorry, sweetie. A little bit of pressure here. I want to push on his head, so Get some of the fluid to come out. There it is, nice and clear. Good.
I love that she is doing things to make this experience personalized to her. This is often something that I go over around that 34-week mark when we start to talk about a birth plan or a birth preference form. So bringing things from home that will help center and ground you and just give you a sense of calm and peace are very, very important, especially if you're delivering in a hospital setting. So I love those starry night projectors. I have patients who will put up string lights. You can put up affirmations. You can bring something from home. Maybe it's something from a loved one or a favorite this or that just helps to give you peace and can be soothing for you. All of those things, putting forethought into those things really goes a long way towards customizing this experience, personalizing this experience, taking down the intimidation in this experience, and making it more custom to what you desire it to be. Breaking the bag of water or an amniotomy is something that is often done to accelerate the labor and delivery process. It could also sometimes be done if there's an indication of a concern. So, for example, we see changes in the heart rate tracing where we need to investigate what's going on. Sometimes it can be done so that we can facilitate placing internal monitors that will give us a closer eye on when those contractions are happening and how strong those contractions are, as well as give us a closer eye on the baby's heart rate tracing. And it literally looks like a little crochet hook, like a little hook, and you just snag the bag of water and break the bag of water. It typically is a longer cervical check. So typically if you tolerate a cervical exam well, it's just a few seconds added to your typical cervical exam. Internal monitors are optional. They don't always have to be placed just because your bag of water is broken. Sometimes amniotomies are done, as I mentioned, to accelerate the labor and delivery process. So if someone has been stuck at, say, 4 centimeters and it's been several hours, sometimes just breaking the bag of water is all that's necessary to keep things moving forward. She mentioned that the bag of water is clear. The alternative can be meconium in the bag of water. Meconium is where baby poops or has a bowel movement in the bag of water. This can be a stress response. Again, going back to labor being stressful, not just for the mama, but for the baby too. When meconium is present in the bag of water, we try to determine, is it a tiny amount of meconium? We call that thin meconium. Is it a moderate amount of meconium or a thick amount of meconium? Because sometimes those varying degrees of meconium can lead to distress for the baby and often will inform what happens at delivery, because in those circumstances, you want to prevent baby from inhaling and taking a big gulp of that fluid and that meconium potentially getting into baby's lungs and leading to damage and other respiratory difficulties later on because of that inhalation of that particulate material.
Hi, can I get the epidural?
Oh, yeah,
Okay, thank you.
we can cover once he comes. Okay. Camera. I want to come.
Oh, that's
Oh yeah. Take a deep breath in, yeah. Reaching the chest here, ready? Wow. Perfect. Good. Blow everything and breathing. Let's go. Perfect. And then just like that. Just like that. Good. Beautiful.
This mom is pushing on her back in what's called a dorsal lithotomy position. There are several positions in which you can choose to push in. Either side is a good candidate. You can push on all fours. You can push using a squatting bar. You can push using handles or rails that help you kind of curl around baby and get in position for baby to easily navigate that pubic bone, get underneath that pubic bone for delivery. This is the bone baby's head. Lots of different positions. I've had mamas push standing up. So it really just depends on your pain control, your comfort level, listening to your body and doing what feels right for your body. Sometimes we'll change your pushing position if baby seems to respond better in one position versus the other. So for example, in some positions, you can get more compression of the cord, for example, and then help alleviate compression of that cord in other positions. So you'll see improvements in baby's heart rate tracing with different positions. So lots of different reasons why someone might push in one position versus another.
Perfect. And then just like that. Just like that. More. Good. Beautiful. Good. That's a girl. Just like that. Good. Awesome.
When you're pushing, you want to push in your bottom like you're constipated. The position that this mama is in helps that baby again navigate underneath that pubic bone. So by holding her knees to her chest and her chin on her chest, curling around baby allows that baby to get in that ideal position for that head to come underneath that pubic bone. You want to push in your bottom like you're constipated. So you take a big deep breath like you're going underwater, and I mean fill up all the way to your back. Try to push in your bottom like you're constipated and hold it in one continuous push for a count of 10, and then quick breath in between and push again. The longer your breaths are in between, there's an opportunity for that head to come back up, and you want to prevent that one step forward, two steps back type of thing that can happen when you wait too long in between pushing. We typically do 3 pushes for a count of 10 with each contraction. You only want to push with your contractions because you want to let your body help you. So that's a little bit easier to get to the finish line.
Push strong. Just like that. Yeah, just like that. Oh, yeah. Yes, that's the way. Oh, yeah. That's the way. Good. One time. Yeah, listen to her. Yeah, listen to her. Watch her. Good job. Perfect. Awesome. That's it. Good.
Feeling it now.
Stretching and feeling a lot of pressure.
You can hear that there's a deceleration or a decrease in the heart rate at this late stage in the second stage of labor, which is this pushing stage of labor. That's something that we commonly encounter as babies moving through that birth canal. You can definitely see that the heart rate drops a little bit sometimes with the contractions. That's an indication that that head is being squeezed and is not necessarily cause for concern unless it's super deep and baby doesn't recover like it needs to back to its baseline heart rate. A normal baseline heart rate for baby is going to be anywhere from 110s to 160s. So lower than that, sustained for a long period of time, can be a concern. Higher than that, sustained for a long period of time, can also sometimes be a concern. But you can see that this mom is being instructed to do things that will help to allow this baby to recover, such as taking deep breaths. We have to remember that we're breathing for baby at this point. So filling up those lungs, focusing on your breathing, taking big deep breaths can help that baby recover. Sometimes we'll use oxygen in this setting as well in order to give baby a little bit of an extra boost. And then other times we'll do interventions like some extra fluid, give mama a break from the Pitocin, trying different positions again to help alleviate the compression, particularly on the cord. This mama's probably about to deliver though, so I believe everything's going to be a-okay. Another thing I want to mention before we actually see the delivery is that you want to have a conversation with your birth provider in the hospital about what their policies are about filming on labor and delivery. Hospitals have different policies, and at some locations you can only take still pictures. You can't do any filming. So that would potentially be against hospital policy. I'm assuming that they got permission in this particular situation in order to film this portion of their delivery experience. The other thing you'll notice is that the faces of the providers here in the room are blurred out. That might be another workaround in terms of filming. But you definitely want to have a discussion with your provider ahead of time. Make this a part of your birth plan or your birth preference form so that, again, you're not caught off guard because you didn't know this information going into it.
Baby's coming. Yeah, put that.
Yeah, it's all right.
Okay. Good. And stop. Good. Yep. Just breathe. Just breathe. Exactly. Yep, he has cord around his neck twice.
Oh, twice.
2 times.
Oh.
Yep. And he's compound. There you go. Somersaults in there trying to outdo your brother. Yeah. Hey, the monkey go. 2 of the 3 get running. I have the suction. That's right. Thank you.
So now we have the explanation as to why we were seeing some of those decelerations in the heart rate. The baby had what's called a nuchal cord, which is where the umbilical cord is wrapped around the neck. So every time she was having a contraction, that cord was just getting squeezed and compressed around the baby's neck, and that's what led to the deceleration in that heart rate. So oftentimes at delivery, we can get more insight as to why a complication may have arisen during the labor and delivery process, but sometimes we don't know. But that's pretty tough, a nuchal cord twice, and you can't always accurately predict that with ultrasound. On exam, that umbilical cord moves so freely all the time. You can't always look at what might be an indication of that on ultrasound and have insight as to whether or not it's going to impact someone's delivery or labor and delivery experience. You can also have body cords where the cord is not wrapped around the neck but is wrapped around any body part, whether it be the trunk, torso, stomach, an arm, leg, limb. All of that is a possibility and can lead to distress in some cases.
For you.
Daddy. Thank you.
Perfect. Excellent. You're free, buddy.
Cutting the cord can be kind of a weird experience. It's kind of chewy. You got to know that going in. Also know that you're not hurting the baby, so don't be worried about that. Congratulations to this beautiful family. Thank you so much for joining us this week. Do me a favor and share this episode with a mama who you know would benefit from the learning and the healing and the empowerment that happens each and every week on the Black Birth Stories podcast. We'll see you next week.
Want to go deeper? The conversation doesn't have to stop here. Join Melanin Maternity, our digital Black birth community, where you'll get expert guidance, real support, and a sisterhood that sees you. From live Q&As with birth experts to empowering discussions with other Black mamas, we've got you covered. Click the link in the description and step into the community you deserve.